job interview is one of the most anxiety-provoking situations most people can find themselves in, even when they go to plan. But what happens when you have your worst interview ever? Our guests share their worst interviews ever in the hope that you will take something from their mistakes to have a more successful interview outcome. Some of the stories are horrific and some are just downright embarrassing. Let's join our host, Kevin O'Reilly, the interview skills coach with over 25 years' experience in the fields of coaching and recruitment. Let's welcome our guests to the show.
Today's guest has been rejected, ghosted, overcharged, undercut, and still ended up training the likes of Salesforce, Barclays, and Sainsbury's. Meet Niraj Kapur, CEO of Everybody Works in Sales, a 5-time LinkedIn top voice, and one of the most trusted sales trainers in the game. He's helped thousands of professionals find their voice on LinkedIn, mastered the art of writing sales emails, and actually gets replies, and survived 23 years of job interviews across everything from the FTSE 100 companies to former media empires. These days, he coaches startups, solo entrepreneurs across the world, but his path here, let's just say it started with a few questionable interviews and a whole lot of lessons. From getting the silent treatment to giving TEDx talks, Niraj's journey is equal parts entertaining and exactly what our audience needs to hear. And yes, at one point, he wore a full suit to a startup office full of hoodies. I know we've all been there. Niraj, you're very welcome on today's show.
Kevin, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. I have wanted you on this show for quite some time because of your background and your experiences. Our listeners and our viewers will get so much from this, not just in the world of interviews, but even outside of that. I love your company and I love your business. Everybody works in sales. Niraj, where did all that come from?
It came from spending 23 years working in London and around the world, selling. And, in those days, this is before lockdown, you had to work 5 days a week in an office and you had to travel minimum 3 hours a day commuting time. Now, if you wanted to work from home in those days, you were called lazy and you were denied the opportunity to work from home. And, you travel 5 days a week, 3 hours a day, and quite often having train delays on top of that, it takes so much mentally out of you. And after the age of 40, it's just not fun anymore. It really is. Like, why am I doing this for? Half my life's probably gone now, and I'm still commuting all the time. And I think when you get over 40, you start to question your life more, your legacy, your values. Where am I going? What am I about? What do I stand for? And I thought, you know what? Maybe it's time I went on my own. And maybe
Hmm.
it's time I set up my own business because as much as I love selling, I was what you would call a selling manager. So I spent half my days selling to hit the company's targets, but I spent half my day coaching team members to hit their targets. And that was where I got the most joy and happiness from. Was taking somebody who maybe was a bit underconfident, making them more confident, taking somebody who was a B player and making them an A player.
Wow. Well, that's a really valuable set of skills you have because it's not easy to coach individuals from a B to an A. It takes
It's
a bit of
not.
time.
It's tougher to take somebody from A to an A plus. That's really hard because a lot of
Hmm.
A's think they're the best things in the world since sliced bread. Or should we say since or Northern Ireland, the best things in the world since Ulster fries. but the fact is that most of them really aren't. They just had success for 6 months and they think they're untouchable. But taking somebody from an A to an A plus is very difficult. But really, when it comes to coaching, it's all down to the attitude of the person. I've seen C players go to A players within 12 months and have
Yeah.
amazing careers. I've also seen A players fall to C players because of arrogance and thinking they know everything as well.
It's that old adage, isn't it? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. Hold on, there's a caveat. You can if it wants to learn.
Yes, your ability to learn. There's an amazing book called $1 Trillion Coach,
Mm.
and it's by a guy who coached Steve Jobs. He coached the founders of Google. He's coached Mark Zuckerberg, hence name $1 Trillion Coach. And he says one of the greatest indicators of success for anybody, whether they have their own business, they work for somebody else, or going for job interviews, is their attitude to learn and their attitude to be coached.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And in my game and in your game, we're both coaches. And what I have always tended to find is If I needed coached, I would go to a coach who is being coached. I'll say that again for people in case they didn't pick that up. If I needed a coach, I would go to a coach who has a coach because they understand exactly what that means. They understand what it means to be coached and to be coaching. Myself personally, I have 3 coaches. They look at different parts of my business and my life because I am humble enough to realize that I do not know everything. And I think that's it's when you said about getting that A to an A plus, that's the attitude, isn't it? That's the attitude deficit. If they don't have that and they don't want to learn something new, it is very, very difficult.
I
And I'm
love
sure
that
you've
you
come
still
across
have
people like that.
coaches. Oh, absolutely. And I love that you still have coaches. I love that you work with 3 different coaches. I work with
Hmm.
different coaches as well. I have a speaker coach whenever I go on stages because going on
Hmm.
stage in front of an audience, even with 300 or 400 people, is a big deal. You want to get it right.
Hmm.
I've kind of gone as far as I can go in terms of sales, but with sales, it's not just the sales. It's now I have to learn the business side of things as well, because for the first time ever, I'm coaching 2 CEOs, and these CEOs are way more intelligent than me, 10 times more successful than me, and yet I'm coaching them. So I had to
Yeah.
get a business coach to say, how on earth do I coach CEOs? I've no idea. But they trusted me, which is why they hired me, because I know I'll do right by them. And they
Yeah.
knew I would end up being smart enough to get a coach to teach me how to coach them. But that's what you do. You reach out to people. And the number of coaches out there, number of business coaches out there I see who don't invest in themselves is incredible and also
I,
quite dangerous too.
I agree with that. I agree. I do see lots of this in my game. Business coaches that use the title but don't really have any substance to back that up. And it is quite dangerous to allow these particular individuals to coach a large business that has employees, that have families, that have bills, that have expenses. And potentially that one person's wisdom or lack of could affect 20, 30, 40 lives.
Mm.
It's a big responsibility as a coach, and I take my responsibility, and I'm sure you do as well. I take that. I have that very high on my priority list. I will absolutely never give any information that I can't back up factually or statistically. But as a coach, and especially in your world with the sales, anybody who has sold something in a shop can claim to be a salesperson. But you were the sales manager of the sales team, which is very, very different. But again, it's when you start your own business, the amount of different hats that you're going to have to wear and the amount of hats you have been wearing, Niraj, probably your hat stack might be right to the roof because you're the accountant, you're the CEO, you're the delivery person, you're the speaker on stage, you're the cleaner, you're the everything. You're absolutely everything in your own business, especially when you're a sole entrepreneur. But when we look at the sales angle or the sales within the LinkedIn, because you're very heavily within LinkedIn as well,
Mm.
and you do a lot of sales training within LinkedIn, I think this is going to be extremely beneficial to our listeners because when they go for jobs, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but when they go for jobs, 9 out of 10 companies will check social media even before they give an interview. And if it isn't interview ready, they won't even bring you to that interview. Some people wonder why their CV is great, they're hitting all the criteria points, but they're still not invited to the interview. 9 out of 10 companies go to LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and have a look at what you're posting. And I've always recommended that you have a personal account and a business account as such. Your business account being for applying for jobs in your exact name and title so that people can find you easily, or at least you can direct them to that page. And it's the page where you will be ticking all the boxes of if I'm a project manager, I'm part of the project management team. I'm looking at everything to do with project management. I'm liking, sharing, reposting, everything to do with project management. However, there are so many individuals out there right now that don't do that. Do you find that in sort of your line of work when you train people around LinkedIn and the sales And I know that you do that probably more so for business as opposed to individuals. But if we could look at both sides of that, the business and the individual, how that might
Absolutely.
benefit.
Well, a lot of my friends are HR directors, and I've worked with sales leaders now for 7 years of my business, and of course, decades before that. And certainly in the last 2 years, almost every single person I speak to, if you reach out to somebody for a job, the first thing they will do is go to your LinkedIn profile. It's the first thing they do. And that's why I always say to people, your banner, your picture, your headline, and your about section are absolutely vital because it's the first thing any person looking to hire somebody will look at. So they'll see your banner first, your picture first, your headline first. And then they will go to your about section, and then they will go to your experience section, and then they'll put her down and have a look at recommendations. What are people saying about you that have worked with you? And if that is very different to your CV, you have a major problem because you have a
Hmm.
credibility problem. Now, people don't tend to check Twitter or Facebook until after that. In all fairness, like I sit in a company I've been working with now for quite some time. I sit on the final interviews of staff. And I always do a safety check. So I'll go quickly onto Facebook and quickly onto Twitter and onto Instagram to see are they saying anything controversial or
Hmm.
inflammatory or inappropriate. That's what I call a quick safety check. And I have caught
Hmm.
people out in that in the past. But ultimately, I'll go to LinkedIn. And if their CV is all singing, all dancing, all bragging, which a lot of CVs are, and their LinkedIn profile is bereft of any value, that's a bit of a red flag. And you need to just be very aware of that anytime you're applying for jobs, whether you're an individual or whether you're applying as a company.
And do you see that more so within your line of work as businesses? Do you believe that other businesses check other businesses' social media and LinkedIn?
Oh, 100%. They all tell me they do.
Oh, they always tell you to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, put
What
it like
what are they
this,
looking for?
every single person who's hired me. So whether it's for one-to-one coaching, for group training for a team, or for speaking at an event, every single person who's hired me one of two ways. They got personal recommendation, and then after that, they looked at my LinkedIn profile, or they found me on LinkedIn, followed me for a while, saw the quality of my character, how I interacted with people, the value I gave, and then they reached out to me. So that is how important LinkedIn is. People will look at LinkedIn first. And if you have a photograph which is cut in half, which many photographs are because you're being on holiday, and I see people with photographs and they're so obviously cut in half, or I just see their about section saying, I work here, I have a degree in this. It doesn't tell people anything about you. And
Hmm.
despite the incredible growth and heaviness of technology in today's world, in most businesses, especially SMEs, it's still very human driven. And
Yeah.
people still want to hire good people, regardless of what anybody says. So it's important to keep that in mind, and that's why it's important to have a quality LinkedIn profile.
So just back to the LinkedIn profile. How do you design that? And what do you call that little section below the picture that has all of
That's
the
called your headline.
your headline? So what would your recommendations be around designing that headline? Because I see lots of different um, experts claiming lots of different things. You know, one will claim that you need to put in the outcomes based marketing style, which is telling people what they will achieve. Then others are telling you that you have to put in what you have into that so that people can see that and go, oh, yes, I need that. What, in your professional opinion, what do you think should be in that?
Well, I spent 10 years of my life at Marketing Week in London, in Soho, working there. And my friends are all marketers and marketing directors, so I'm a huge believer in testing. I have tested saying I'm an author of 3 books, TEDx speaker, LinkedIn trainer, Salesforce influencer, LinkedIn top voice. And I've trained saying, I help you grow in sales. I help you grow your brand. And when I say I help you increase sales and I help you grow your brand, that is way more successful than saying, look at me, I've written 3 books, I'm a TEDx speaker. I mean, I'm very proud of that. Most people have
Hmm.
no idea what it takes to write a good book. They can't even comprehend the sleepless, not just sleepless nights, sleepless months, you know.
I'm in that process, Niraj. I'm in the process. I have my first draft already done. And in another week or so's time, the second draft or hopefully the final iteration will be done. So I know what you mean.
That's fantastic. On a separate note, reach out to me. I'll be happy to share. So whenever we meet up after the podcast, I'll share some advice on selling your book because people think they write the book and they do one or two LinkedIn posts and go, "Whew, that's done and dusted." No, it's not. You need to have a sales plan in place to sell that book, and we'll have a separate conversation about it because it's so important.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that offer. And folks, if anybody else is writing a book, you know the man to go to for the sales afterwards. Absolutely. And to be completely honest, that is something I didn't think of. It's all consuming writing the book. The thought of what am I going to do with this resource now afterwards, I don't even think that has come into my mind as yet. But thank you for bringing that to my attention.
No, it's fine. I mean, mine was done through a lot of things in life which are trial and error. And,
Mm,
when I set my business up, I was shocked at how difficult it was to run a business because being good at your job and being good at running a business are two completely different things.
hmm
And I really struggled in running a business, so I leaned far too heavily on my first book. And people who couldn't afford my coaching, I'd say, okay, we'll just buy 10 copies of my book and I'll coach you for an hour, which is a terrible business model, but it sold a lot of copies of my book. You learn the hard way sometimes in life.
Do you know what? That's a decent strategy as well. It might not be a sustainable strategy, but that is a good strategy. If nothing else, is to get you up that the book sales list.
Well, it really helped. I was constantly in the Amazon top 100, and people were trying to find out why. And I thought it was really smart because my book is next to Richard Branson's book, Losing Your Virginity. And I would take a picture, put it on LinkedIn, it would do well. A picture of me next to Warren Buffett's book, a picture of me next to Brian Tracy. You know how amazing these people are.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great adrenaline kick. It's wonderful for your ego. But don't forget, for every £10 book you sell, Amazon takes 70% and you get £3. And you have to pay taxes on that. That does not even buy you a soya flat white anymore. So you think it's a brilliant idea. It's lovely for your ego. You get the adrenaline high, but you cannot run a business selling books unless you sell about, 50 to 100,000 copies of a book a year. You will do
Mm-hmm.
well. But the fact is that only 0.1% do that.
Mm. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that information around the books, and I will most definitely reach out. And I'm sure that some of our listeners here will reach out to you because they have plans and aspirations of writing books, but don't know what to do with it afterwards. A lot of people write a book to do with the authority, to gain that authority relationship with potential clients, to say, I am an author. My book is written to help people. It's called The Power of Client Questions.
Oh, great title. I love that.
And it does exactly what it says on the tin. There was quite a bit of research I done, and I was on a stag do. Now, this was the secondary research, by the way. I was on a stag do with my then potential brother-in-law, and he works in sales, and he works within a call center within sales. And I said to him, "Do you ever get a question that you're asked all the time?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "What is that question?" And he told me the question, and I said, "Are you asked that question in that way?" And he went, "Yes." I said, "Great." I recorded the amount of time it took for that question to be asked. I said, "How do you reply to that question? How do you answer that?" He says, "Well, we answer the question. This is how we answer it with a bit of a script around it. And then I follow it up with an email." I
Mhm.
said, "Great." I said, "How long does that normally take?" He said, "About 3 minutes." 3 minutes. I says, "How many times do you get asked that question a day?" And they're like, 20, 30.
Mhm.
I was like, 20 or 30. So you spend 1 hour every day answering the same question, a minimum of 1 hour every day. And he went, so, yeah, I suppose so. I was like, right, so you spend 20 hours a month answering the same question. He went, yeah. I said, you spend nearly 3 weeks a year answering the same question. And then I think the penny dropped. He was like, oh, yes. Oh my goodness. 3 weeks a year answering the same one question, the same question. And I says, now multiply that by the amount of staff that you have in your business. And he just sat back and went, oh my goodness. That's nearly 6 months worth of the same question being answered. It's a to me, it just doesn't make sense. As a business, that doesn't make sense. It's not sustainable to do that. And that's just one question. If you look at all the questions you're asked, And then the book helps you understand what you do with that. What do you do? How can you mitigate against those questions? And it's just something as simple as having a list of those questions and answering them and scripting them pre conversation or on your website or in your marketing or in your strategies and tactics. It's something so simple, but not many businesses look at the simplicity of it and go, that can't work because it's so simple.
Yeah.
But the facts are the facts are the facts.
You brought up a really good point there about scripting and preparation, because when it comes to interviews, preparation is so important. And I don't
Hmm.
understand the number of people who don't prepare for an interview and they try and wing it. Even today, I mean, I've probably done what, just over 200 podcasts now in the last 5 years, which is a massive amount. And most were done during lockdown because I had no work in lockdown. So I did 2 or 3 podcasts a week just to keep my brain sharp and my public speaking skills sharp.
Hmm.
But even for today's podcast, I still made notes. I still prepared. I've got people who are listening. I've got an old-fashioned pen and paper here, that I still use, because I
Well,
still.
Niraj, look at this.
There
There you go. Look at that. That's what I call preparation. Yeah,
there you go. You see, so
old-fashioned pen and paper.
preparing is so important, and it's a skill I'm surprised so few people do properly. And when you do it properly, it just gives you so much more gravitas and so much more credibility, and just puts you a few steps ahead of other people.
Hmm. And you're right. The preparation is the key to most success. I mean, even the preparation for me having you on as a guest, you will know the amount of work that has been put in prior to this, the
Mm.
questions I've asked previously, the photographs that I've asked you to send, the signing of disclaimers, etc., etc. There is a lot of work that's put into this preparation just to have us on here for 45 minutes or 60 minutes. Without that preparation, this would be literally winging it. Literally winging it. And this wouldn't be as successful as it currently is because it would come across like that. It would come across like we are winging it. And you and I are both not the winging type of people.
No, it's very important to have boundaries in place. I've rejected a lot of podcasts recently because I asked about the questions in advance and structure. And they say, "Oh, we just see how it goes." I'm like, "Yeah, that's not me. I'm sorry." You can just see how it goes. By the way, you just have to make it up as you go along. Can I ask how many podcast downloads you've had? And they didn't know. And I said, "Okay, there you go. That's yeah." It's just, don't make it up and don't just do things because other people do it.
Yeah,
There's so many people who follow a crowd.
yeah.
It's like with a big popular question asked in interviews that a lot of people get asked is, tell me your biggest flaw. And the answer is always the same. I'm too passionate about what I do. I care too much. That's not a good. Everybody gives an answer. Please give me something different, you know?
Yeah, and I think this is coming across in all of the podcasts that I do is people don't, as in the interviewers, don't want to hear the same old stuff.
Mm,
They don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear, oh, I'm so passionate about this. That's a flaw of mine. And I get that. We turn a negative into a positive. However, honesty and integrity goes a long way in an interview. A long way. Now, of course, you can dress that up, but it's a very simple part of I currently don't understand your processes that you do, but I am very willing and really want to know. I mean, that's complete honesty.
yeah.
Complete honesty. Now, I had a girl on here from India previously, and she had said that the actual culture is different because in India, even if they don't have a certain thing, they will say they have it during the interview, and then
Yes.
they will learn it after.
That's a very
Now,
Indian thing to do. Yeah.
I get it, and I get it, and there is, I know, Richard Branson's a great man for saying, say yes and then work it out after.
Yeah.
I get that as well, but there's a part of me, there's a core part of me that is built around integrity and trust. And that really, I find that really difficult. I mean, I literally am like awkwardly moving for those that can see and those that can't. I am awkwardly moving at the thought of trying to lie because that's technically what it is, trying to lie about something. As important as can you do this? No, yes, maybe. I believe in honesty. I believe in not brutal honesty, but honesty so that everybody knows and is clear. Because that's the sort of same respect I give to you as I expect back.
Mm.
you know, and a lot of the time it's about how we deliver that honesty piece. It can make
Oh
a
yeah.
big difference.
There's something I read, a very important sales quote that people will find very useful. It's not what you say, it's how people interpret what you say. And that's
Absolutely.
why when it comes to email, it's so important to get the tone right. Because
Mm,
tone and energy and the words you use and how you come across, because email is the most common form of communication.
hmm.
It's not the best form, but it is the most common. And you have to get it right. And most people still, but I find this shocking in today's day and age with the advancement of technology and especially AI, people still write terrible emails. Just
Mm,
whether not even bad emails, but bad LinkedIn DMs. And when people are applying for jobs, they just copy and paste what they sent to somebody else, thinking it will work. It really won't. And there's a very
yeah.
simple tweak you use when you apply for a job, whether you're emailing somebody or going to LinkedIn DMs, Kevin. It's really simple. You spend the first 1 to 2 lines talking about them. You talk about their business. You talk about a news article you read. You talk about something you saw on their website. You talk about them first. Then you can do copy and paste. But the opening has to be them because if you're going to send me something, I'm going to look at it and go, copy and paste. I had LinkedIn invites this morning. Hi, I'm a big fan of your work. Let's connect. And I looked at them. There was second degree connection. I looked at my LinkedIn premium. They've never looked at my profile. It's like, nope, you're insincere, reject. Insincere, reject. Hi, I'd like to help you make you a six-figure a year, sorry, six-figure a month entrepreneur.
Oh,
I mean, it's just incredible. So, really think about the words you use. Most people don't think about the language they use
yeah.
or the words they use, not just in interviews, by the way, but also on emails too.
Yeah. Email, you've hit the nail on the head. It's the tone, but it can be just misunderstood. If there is an option for me to lift the phone or email, I'm lifting the phone every time.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Again, to succeed in interviews right now, I know people who are applying for jobs on LinkedIn, and there is anywhere from 200 up to 500 people applying for the same
Mm,
job. Now, you need to be very aware of that. And if you're lucky enough to get an interview, one of the smartest things I say to people is send a thank you card in the post because nobody does this. I still send thank you cards to my clients. I still send birthday cards to my clients. I don't
hmm.
just sign my name, I put in something personal. It takes time. I have to go to the post office. I have to buy a stamp, which you nearly need to take out a mortgage these days to buy a stamp. I mean, it's ridiculous. But I do that, and my clients know that when they get this, the effort I've had to go through. I don't have
Yeah.
a post box outside my house. I have to actually go to the nearest spar
Yeah.
or the
It,
post office to actually, go through that effort. Few people do this. You've
they
got
do.
to be doing things, interviews that nobody else is doing to help you stand out right now because the
But
competition out there is ferocious.
but even businesses in this world are exactly the same. And it's funny we were just been discussing this morning because I had sent out nearly 400 letters to different organizations around Northern Ireland. And then after that, I went to a conference where I had a table and a stand at, and I had so many people come to me and say, "Oh, you're the person that sent the letter.
Ah, there you go. Perfect.
You're the person that sent the letter." And the words that came out of their mouth after was, "We rarely get letters. That's why I've read yours." And
That's
I thought,
exactly what they say.
wow, okay. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. But you're right. You need probably a mortgage to take out the stamps. The stamps were the most expensive part of the whole exercise.
They are. They really are. But again, when I get stamps, I always try to get special edition stamps. So I'll get, Star Trek ones, or there was Star Wars ones for a while. I'll always try and get special edition stamps just because they look so cool. That's all.
But that's the detail that you go into, Niraj. And I'm a great believer in how you do something is how you do everything. And if you're going into that sort of detail just for a stamp, then the detail you must be getting into within your sales training is exactly the same.
Mhm. It is.
And the people that are receiving that detail, they should be really appreciative of the time and effort that you go into to create something of value and worth to them.
100%. It's fascinating when I talk to people about sales training because depending where you work, you charge differently for London than a small business in Belfast. Of course you do.
Yeah.
But even a small business in Belfast will be like £1,500 for the day. Like, what? 1,500? How can you? I say, okay, let me tell you why. I've got decades of experience. I
Mm-hmm.
spend half a day to a day preparing for this. I then deliver the training. I then do follow-up training, and I help your team achieve results worth between 5 to 10 times more
Mm-hmm.
you've just invested in me. And you're really going to question £1,500? Is that all your team is worth? It's incredible. They don't realize the amount of care. And that's the word,
Yep.
it's care. I never walk into anybody's office with copy and paste slides because everybody has different needs.
Mm-hmm.
Every company is different, and every training has to be tweaked to adapt to a certain company depending on their sector. And it takes so much effort, and people know the difference. I've seen so many, don't forget, I pay a lot of money as well to go to LinkedIn courses just to see
Mm-hmm.
what my competition are doing. And the amount of people who haven't updated slides since 2022 is shocking. The amount of people who still teach stuff and just read from the slides. You don't just read, you have to interact. You have to
Mm-hmm.
educate in a certain way, and reading from slides for a whole day or a half a day just sends people to sleep and puts them off ever learning again.
Absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. Exactly what you mean about that creating value.
Hmm.
The very first thing people see is the cost. They don't see the investment.
That's so true.
They see the cost, not the investment. And it's usually because they're working from a budget and not from an outcome based thought process of what potential will this give us in the future. And it's almost like, oh, 1,500 quid. Oh, my word. Like £1,500 to multiply your income by 10. That's an investment.
Hmm.
I don't care what anybody else says. That's an investment in their future. And you potentially have lost clients because they can't foresee that. And maybe you're better off not having those clients because those clients, they'll not be great people to pass on the value that they received from you to others. They will not be your cheerleaders.
But people sometimes, losses hurt even though it's right to let people go sometimes. I
Mm-hmm.
had a lady who hired me last year for coaching in Belfast. And she booked 3 coaching sessions. And after the first one, she said, look, I can't afford it anymore. And I said, okay, but you're running a business and you can't afford £600 extra. But okay, I understand people go through tough times. I've been through it myself. I was very understanding. And then several months later, I saw her promote her mentor from Women in Business on LinkedIn. And I reached out to her and asked her. And she goes, oh, I'm really sorry, it was free. I said, hey, you know what? I get it. You get free mentoring at Women in Business, so be it. How's your business going? Her business was struggling because she thought free mentoring meant, yay, free! But free doesn't mean you get good value. And most people do not understand this. They really don't. And a lot of people who do free mentoring are not qualified to do free mentoring. A lot of people who do business coaching, as you will know, are not qualified. I don't mean coaching certificate, I just mean the ability to help you succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
number of times I've actually had people from government bodies teach business coaching using ChatGPT is shocking. I'm sitting there with them and they're saying, well, ChatGPT says this. Have you thought of, I'm like, they're literally using ChatGPT to coach people. You don't understand the human element or the psychology of people.
No.
And that's also important when it comes to interviews as well. You have to understand people. And that's why I say one of the greatest sales skills you can have right now, especially, are soft skills, like emotional intelligence, like
Mm-hmm.
understanding human beings. One of the things you talked about earlier, asking questions, and of course, the ability to listen. And not just listen to what is said, but more importantly, do something that people rarely do. Listen to what isn't said. Listen to the
Mm-hmm.
pauses. Observe the body language. Listen to the ah, okay. Listen to the tone. Listen to what isn't said. And most people just don't pick up on these things at all.
It's very true. And you, as well as probably the rest of us here, know that we can quite easily lie with our words. But talking about body language is very difficult to lie with our body.
Hmm,
And
true.
it's picking up on those non-verbal communications has a huge impact, especially in your line of work within sales. You can see someone squirming, or you can see a raised eyebrow, or a head tilt, or a micro expression of the lip going, what is that? But lots of people don't understand that. They can't translate what that means. And then if they can translate it, some of them don't know what to do with it. Do you know that gut feeling you get? Do you know that gut feeling? Well, that gut feeling is your subconscious mind. That is something that has been seen, said, or heard that just doesn't sit right with you based on your past experiences. And if your past experiences are in sales or in marketing or whatever else within business, and someone makes a gesture, you get a gut feeling, you should go with that. Now, the gut isn't always right. It's right, and sorry, it's trained because it sees what it wants to see. So you are training it every single day by how you read, who you hang around with, what you listen to, where you go. It is being trained to pick up on these non-verbal communications all the time. So you got to be very careful what you're putting in and who you're hanging around with and where you're going. So it's back to something that we had discussed off camera, and it was about surrounding yourself with the right people in the right environments. It's so important. But that also comes back to the interview as well. If you can get into the room and speak to people who are doing the job you're doing, and I find this is where LinkedIn comes into its own, you can reach out to anybody who's doing the job that you would like to do. It doesn't even need to be in the same business you're applying for, and ask questions before you get in.
Oh, I love that. So few people do this. So
So
few
few.
people do this. Uh,
Oh,
there's a lady
what a
recently,
resource.
Suzanne, who got a job as an account manager of my biggest client, and she saw me coaching. They promoted me on LinkedIn. She saw me coaching the team. She reached out to me to say, I have an interview next week. I'd just love to ask you a few questions. And I thought, what a brilliant attitude. That rarely happens. So I gave her,
Hmm.
literally, it was a 15-minute meeting, but it lasted almost half an hour. I just loved her attitude, her behavior. And again, her attitude was what was best. Her
Hmm.
desire to learn, improve, and do better. And then she went for the job. She had a few interviews. They came to me saying, what do you think about her? I said, I think she's brilliant. How have you found her? He goes, we love her attitude. And I said, okay, I always say hire for attitude. You can always train
Absolutely.
somebody for skills. Skills are easy to teach. But
Hmm.
trying to teach somebody how to have a good personality, that's really hard.
That is very difficult. And again, I think you and I must have shared notes before we started here. We must be reading the same books. There is a book called Hire for Attitude, and
Okay,
it is a fantastic book because it just goes into those details of why you should hire people for their attitude and why you shouldn't.
okay.
And it is a really simple, easy read. But once I read that, it just changed my perspective on hiring in general. I had the idea of, yeah, the right people for the right job at the right time. Yeah, great. What else did they need? It's that attitude. They may not be able to come in with all the answers, and as you quite rightly said, they may not come in with all of the skill set, but skills can be easily taught.
Mm.
And soft skills are one of the most important, if not the most important part of an interview. It's the hard skills that get you to the interview. It's the soft skills that get you the job.
Ah,
It's as
love it.
simple as that. In the same, and I'm making an assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's probably in the same vein as selling. It's the hard skills that get you into the room, but it's the soft skills that will make the sale.
Oh yeah, persistence gets you into a room more than anything else. But really, when you're there, you know, coming across a typical salesperson will not get you anywhere.
No.
But I always say the most important thing isn't to be the best, because being the best is very subjective. Look, in my free time, I go to rock gigs. I love rock music. And the last year, I've seen AC/DC at Wembley, Bryan Adams, Bruce Springsteen for the gazillionth time. All these bands who I love and adore. Now, if you ask me who's the best, I can't tell you because they're all exceptional in their own way. But what they all do is they're all different and they stand out. And I always say
Mm.
to people to do well in a job interview, to do well in sales, just be different to other people. Don't sound like anybody else. I can't stress the importance of being different,
Yeah.
standing
There's
up.
there's a little technique I always use, and it's almost covert in a sense. And I just ask people, why did you get into this role that you're currently at? Where did this love, where does this passion, but you're a manager, was it accidentally, did you plan for this? And we get into a bit more detail because I want that to come to the forefront when they are speaking, because that is what's going to differentiate them between candidate A and candidate B, is their story, is the very small, short story at the beginning of who they are and why they want this job. And nine times out of 10, once they understand why they want the job, And it could be a love, a passion, or this is the direction they want their career to go in. But once they understand that, it's so much easier for them to answer all the rest of the questions because everything comes from that base. And it's why we spend quite a bit of time laboring the point of why is it you want this job? Why do you think your skill set is equivalent to the needs of this job? And it's about getting an understanding of exactly who this person is so they can stand out for all the right reasons.
Absolutely. Speaking of questions, I really want to do the quick fire round with you before we come to the end because, and I could literally talk to you for hours without even exaggerating easily because we have so much, we share so many of the same values. But
We
I just
do.
want to miss out on that. That was all.
Okay. Well, do you know what then? Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Now, Niraj, I don't think we're going to get time to talk about our worst interview ever. So this may be a follow-up conversation you and I have, a shorter conversation, because I think this is really beneficial to everybody who is watching and listening right now. Talking about talking about LinkedIn and sales in a general sense, but also how that can be related back to the interview process as well. So, for all of our listeners and watchers out there who have not heard of this quickfire round, it is very simply that Niraj only has to say yes, no, or pass. He is not allowed any further follow-up questions. He's not allowed to ask for context. It's just a very simple yes, no, or pass. Niraj, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Good. Is it acceptable to wear pajama bottoms to a Zoom interview?
No,
Is it okay to bribe the interviewer?
no,
Is it wise to ask the interviewer for a selfie at the end?
no,
Should a candidate smile during the interview?
yes.
Should you answer the first question with a dramatic pause for effect?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Yes.
Should women wear high heels to an interview?
It's nobody's business, but let's say pass on that one.
Is it acceptable to ask the interviewer how much they make?
No,
Should you high five the interviewer at the end?
no,
Should a candidate swear during the interview?
no.
And is it acceptable to bring your mom to the interview for moral support?
I'm actually thinking about that. No. I
Niraj,
love
that's
my
the end
mother.
of that.
I would actually bring her to the interview now.
How did you find that?
Um, really good. Really good. I know you were asking me initially, think about red flags as well. So I was thinking about red flags for interviews as well, you see. And I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking about the worst interview I've ever had. I mean, I've had quite a few bad ones in the past because, when you're in your 20s, I found it very difficult going for job interviews. I did because there's so much you don't know. You think you're very smart in your 20s, but you're really not as smart as you think you are.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
you know, I remember my first few interviews I did really bad and I was just speaking so much. But you don't often get feedback. And one guy in an interview just stopped saying, "Look, you have not stopped speaking for 5 minutes. Why would I hire you for?" I'm like, oh my God, that's a really good point. So again, one thing I mentioned at the beginning is about soft skills is emotional intelligence and just being self-aware is so important. And I'm finding it harder, especially for young people these days, to be self-aware because they are addicted to their phones, says the man whose phone's going off. Sorry,
Oh, that, that
that
was
was
that
my
was
alarm.
almost like it was planned.
I promise you it wasn't. Um, um, People are addicted to their phones. Young people, don't forget, I got a daughter and two stepdaughters in their 20s and all their friends. So I have to deal with this. Plus, I coach a lot of young people as well in organizations.
Hmm.
And I just see staring at the screen all day, looking at your screen over lunch, going for a walk at lunch and just looking at your screen. You've got to take time away from your screen just to breathe
Yeah.
and look at life and observe people and just spend time thinking. And if you do that for only half an hour during the day, and preferably half an hour at night, but at least half an hour during the day, it's amazing what it will do to you. Writing in a journal each day, just things like that. Being self-aware is so important when it comes to not just business and life, but for job interviews as well.
Yeah.
When I say to
It
young
is.
people about journaling, they're like, "Oh yeah, I write notes on my phone." I said, "No, don't write it in your phone. Write it in a diary, please. Don't write it in your phone. Don't look at your phone before bed. Okay, you'll sleep better at night. I promise you."
Niraj, you're right. We could speak all day. We seem to have a lot of crossovers and a lot of things in common. And I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing with our listeners and our viewers your experience of over, 20 plus years working in sales across the world in large organizations across different industries. Your experience and your wisdom is invaluable. So if someone wants to reach out to you, where can they do that?
LinkedIn's the easiest place. And if you want to learn more about sales and LinkedIn, on my website, nirajkapur.com or everybodyworksinsales.com, you'll
Mhm.
find loads of articles on sales and LinkedIn will help you going forward.
That is fantastic. Thank you very much. And you will also find Niraj's details in the show notes afterwards. Folks, thank you very much for tuning in again. And let's get another little look behind the curtains of the interview process in our next show. Until then, be good.
For more details about our guest, or if you would like to be a guest, go to www.interviewskillscoach.co.uk/my-worst-interview-ever, or find us on Facebook or LinkedIn. And remember, on the other side of a successful interview is the life you deserve.